All right, it looks like I'm live. I'm coming at you today from the Manny Wolf Show, and I'm doing this one solo. And I got to be honest, frankly, I'm a little nervous about doing this. The reason why is not because I don't know how to articulate my point. It's not because of anything except the topic of this live stream, which is that basically I'm doing this live stream because it occurs to me that uh, we, by and large, we've all lost our minds here. And this is not meant to be sorry, I'm just sharing this to the places I normally share to. And there's the gardener right on cue. Okay, so there we go, all done. This is not meant to be pro or con um, coronavirus, lockdown, Donald Trump, the Democrats, anything like that. But what I want to do here is I feel like it's incumbent upon me. I have a responsibility to say what I'm about to say, knowing that people will hear this. And even though I'm going to be talking about how to not react from a sort of gut reaction that you think is factual, that people are going to do that anyway. So I'm going to talk to you today about, well, like I said here, an argument for a return to critical thinking, or at least a visit. And it's going to rub people the wrong way. It's going to offend people. And it's going to make people jump to conclusions about what I'm talking about. And then people are going to come in and they're going to react to those conclusions that they jump to without ever realizing what asses they look like. So many of you guys, if I'm being honest, look like complete jackasses in conversation threads, in posts that you're making. Whether it feels good to you or not, whether you sort of feel right or not about, we'll use staying at home or opening up the economy. I have yet to see a rational, critically thought out, well-reasoned argument, more so on the side of staying at home. Now, the primary argument for staying at home during this time of quarantine, during this COVID-19 crisis, is saving lives. The primary argument, guys, is saving lives. And if we take that argument and really push it to its extreme, which only a few people say, but many, many people intimate with their positions, the argument is this: one single life saved right now is worth whatever happens, whatever the cost. That's the argument in a nutshell. Now, I have, as all of you have, I lived through the 2008 financial crisis, and I honestly couldn't tell you how I got through. I mean, it was that intense. So for me, 2008 to 2012 was just clawing my way through life. It was not easy. It was not good. I saw, if you remember the news footage during those times, you had law enforcement coming to people's homes who didn't want to be there in the first place, having to forcibly kick people out of their homes. Lives were turned upside down. Lives were destroyed. I don't know what the suicide rates were. I don't know what the stats on declining mental health were during that time, but I can hazard a very safe guess that they spiked. So while on a gut level, an emotional level, I understand the plea to save even one human life by any means necessary. See, that's the difference between approaching a question like this, the one we find ourselves in, from a critical thinking standpoint versus an emotional standpoint. But to keep the economy closed is to write a check for future suffering, guaranteed. Guaranteed. It's guaranteed that for every, let's say, one day that we keep things shut down, we are buying ourselves probably 10 days of misery in the future. But there's a popular bias that humans have where we can't see the future as well as we can see the present. The future doesn't seem as real as the present. I don't know the name of the bias, but it's well documented. It's the bias that dictates the outcome of the old question. If I gave you, what would you rather have? $1,000 now guaranteed, or $100,000 guaranteed a year from now? See, the vast majority of people will take the $1,000 now, and they'll justify it by saying things like, well, a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. Get the cash while you can. Make hay while the sun shines. There's no rational thought to that. It's just a gut check, then justified by a platitude of some sort. Now, that doesn't exactly superimpose over our current situation, but I believe that it makes a point. The people who want to open the economy are, well, I mean, they run a range of different positions, but you can see in the news now that the idea of opening the economy is now being conflated with being a Donald Trump supporter. Now, to me, this is politicizing a critical moment in our history. It is baffling. It is gobsmacking. And here's the thing that's the most insidious. It is reducing any complex thoughts that you or I might have or feelings down to a two sides argument again, because there are people who are not like rabid, frothing at the mouth Trump supporters who feel that the best course of action is to open the economy again. But that's not what we're being shown. So let's see if I can give us a little primer on what critical thinking really looks like. Critical thinking is, for one thing, being aware of our biases. And if we can't be aware of our biases, then we will never be able to look at both sides or multiple facets of an issue with anything approaching objectivity. In order to come to a truly sort of well-reasoned viewpoint on any subject, we must be able to look at all the facets of it. And so let's now introduce the media, because the media is a huge influence here. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't buy any of the conspiracy stuff. But what I will say is, using the best critical eye I can, I have seen the media reduce this issue, which is super complex, to sound bites. I've seen the media, both sides, by the way. I'm not, when I say the media, I don't mean just your side of the media and not mine. I mean my side, your side, the middle, everything. I've seen sensationalist clickbait headlines. In fact, I haven't seen almost any headlines that weren't clickbait and sensationalist. I have seen things as offensive to our common sense as suggestions that improving your immune system is pointless against a virus. Now, if we weren't just indoctrinated in fear here, and misinformation and confusion and reduction of nuanced situations to right and wrong, we would know. The vast majority of us know the healthier you are, the better you stave off infection, the better you stave off a virus. This is not breaking news, folks. This is not something you don't already know. But you're in a situation now where the media is pumping you with fear, not because they're necessarily part of a big global conspiracy, but because that's how the machine works. The media pumps you with fear because they know over decades of proof, they've proven the concept without a doubt. Fear and blood and tragedy and all those things sell. They don't have to think about it anymore. They know sensationalized clickbait headlines, which is what we call them today, get people's attention. And every media outlet has an objective. Now, they say they have an objective to the truth, but all you have to do is look at the headlines and just pull back a little bit. And you can see that it's not really the truth. It's a version of the truth. And what they really have a responsibility to is staying in business. It's totally reasonable to make that conclusion, right? They need advertisers. This is why you don't see good news publications making a lot of money, because it's already been well established that sensationalistic topics presented in a sensationalistic way that create fear get attention. So the media is pumping you with fear, again, not as part of some globalist agenda or some conspiracy, but just because that's what they do. And when the more in fear you are, the less your frontal lobe and your cognitive faculty works. You are reduced back to making decisions and feelings from what's called the reptilian brain, the lizard brain. From there, nuance is lost because it is the fight or flight position inside of us. The amygdala is pumping out all kinds of cortisol and adrenaline, and you're just living in an adrenaline and cortisol drip right now. And so it becomes very challenging to move forward into the frontal lobe and engage nuanced critical thought. But now more than ever, you must. It is incumbent upon you. It is incumbent upon me. It is incumbent upon each of us to take a breath, to check our own biases, to really think about what's going on, and to make our decisions about what we feel based on that. Now, no one can argue that, well, I suppose someone can argue anything, but we take it, we hold this truth to be self-evident, that it is of value to preserve human life. Let me just say that, because I'm going to move into some ideas that are going to probably make some people uncomfortable. That having been said, there is a certain amount, a certain degree to which this is out of our control. And so what I see with we keep the whole world closed, even if it means, just if it takes closing the whole world to save one life, that's what we do. I want to ask, why do we not value saving lives from car accidents, obesity, tobacco, alcoholism, drug abuse, domestic violence? Why do we not value saving those lives, the common flu, the same way we value saving these lives that may or may not be taken by coronavirus? And the only answer I've seen is that those things aren't contagious. But that has an air of justifying your virtue signaling to it. That has an air of sort of self-righteousness to it. We are in the grip of what is being called a global pandemic. Now, it's not a popular thing to say, and it's an uncomfortable thing to say, but I think someone needs to say it. There's going to be loss of life. I mean, there's going to be. There already has been. And on the one hand, doing everything we can to stem the loss of life is responsible. On the other hand, there must be a balance between that and the long-term catastrophic damage, including loss of life, that will be created by shutting down the global economy to the extent that we have. So what I'm saying here, I guess what I'm saying is that my position is that we need to find strategic ways to allow the economy to start working again. We've already written a check that's going to come back. The bill comes due. With our behavior so far, we've already created a significant piece of economic damage, probably at a global level, right? A significant piece of economic damage at a global level has already been set in motion. Yesterday, oil was at a negative price. What you can take from that is that the stock market is in crazy times. Now, at the mention of oil or at the mention of the stock market, what will happen for a lot of people is they'll get triggered because they identify as thinking the stock market is evil and knowing that oil is destructive. But don't be triggered here. See that sign for what it is. I'm not defending oil. I'm not defending the stock market. However, for those of us who feel that there's got to be some other way besides this capitalist economy or whatever the sort of argument is, think about the catastrophic damage that would happen from somehow stopping the capitalist economy. And this is an argument nobody's ever making. This is something nobody's ever talking about. But it's something that's very, very important. It's easy to sort of, especially here in America, right, to be here enjoying the level of sort of autonomy that you do have, which may not be perfect, by the way. I'm not saying it's perfect, but you do have a profound level of autonomy compared to some other places. And in that autonomy, you are protected enough that you can say things like, we need a new economy, or we need a new economic model, and stuff like that. There could be some truth to that. Perhaps there is. But what I never hear anybody talking about is what it would look like day to day across the globe to suddenly try to change the system that we have. It would be catastrophic unless done very, 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 very well. And I think we can agree that one thing governments don't do is react with surgical accuracy, clarity of thought, and good plans. I think that we can look at this situation now and the way governments have reacted as one example that what we do is we overcorrect one direction, then we overcorrect another, right? So all of this is to say, I guess I'm making a plea here to just stop reacting from such a gut check position and engage some critical thinking in your viewpoint. As an example, the other day I wrote a post where I suggested that if the coronavirus is a virus and it is transmitted through sneezing, coughing, and other sort of aerosol transmissions into the air, meaning it's particleized, it's very small, it's moist, and so it moves through the air and hangs there and whatever. Guys, we know what to do about germs that we don't want. This is not novel technology. We also know that the coronavirus takes a minimum of 48 hours to take hold and infect you, once it's on you or in you. Minimum of 48 hours. And so I suggested, what if we began to strategically open up commerce again, and we protected the old, the immunocompromised, and the otherwise infirmed, right? What if? This is what I said, and I got the post that I said this on just went crazy, and it went crazy with a lot of anger and a lot of aggression and a lot of accusations that I don't care about human life, which is absurd. So, my suggestion, if we know that we have 48 hours in which we can neutralize the germs when they're on us, couldn't we meaning the government, institute strong common sense sanitization protocols for each person to do, such as washing your hands for 20 seconds, washing your face. There's something called a neti pot, and if you don't know it, it's wonderful. It's a way to rinse your sinuses with salt water. Very, very good. Gargling salt water in case you get the viral germs in your throat. If they're in your throat, they're going to land on the little hairs, the little what are they called? Bacilli, right? Villi. They're called villi. And the little hairs that are inside your throat. This is where germs land, and this is where things land, and they sit there. And it takes 48 hours for it to integrate into your system. But during that time, you can wash it down into your stomach. You can rinse it out of your nose. You can wash your face. You can wash your hands. You can wash your clothes. See, this would be a critical thinking approach. And I got so attacked by people saying, don't you get it? Don't you get it? Just because I'm being careful doesn't mean the next guy's being careful, which fails to see the point completely. You're being careful because you can't count on the next guy to be careful. See? It's not about whether it lingers on surfaces or how far it goes out into the air when somebody coughs. It's about what you do to stop it once it gets close to you. Personal responsibility. Empowerment to make a choice. Built right in. So instead of worrying about what Joe the neighbor is doing, let's worry about our own safety. Let's take responsibility for our own safety 100% into our own hands. And we can sterilize, we can sanitize, we can rinse, we can wash, we can do all of these things. We can stay at home if that's how we feel. Right? But that argument is too nuanced because people have been pumped with fear. Our amygdala is soaked in fear. Our nervous system is soaked in fear. And that reduces our ability to have nuanced, multifaceted discussions about serious topics. Critical thinking is the way out of that. But you must be able to recognize when you're making gut check reactions, gut check feelings, and when you're projecting that out into the rest of the world. And you must be able to realize that, for instance, with the coronavirus, just because it is dangerous doesn't mean you are powerless to protect yourself against it. And you do not need to minister to what other people's choices are. You don't, like, I was partially protected and edified on that post, and I was partially vilified and crucified on that post. And I was crucified by people with one primary argument. Just because I'm being safe doesn't mean they'll be safe. How fucking stupid can you be? I mean, that's that argument is just asinine. You take the responsibility for your own safety precisely because you can't count on the person in the next house or in the supermarket to do it on your behalf. But that's okay. That's all right. Because who do you want looking out for your safety anyway? You or strangers? Right? It makes perfect sense. So what I'd done there is I had identified an idea, just an idea, by the way, that would allow each of us personal accountability, personal responsibility, which goes right in line with our cultural narrative in the United States. We don't like the government telling us what to do. We don't like being told what to do by other people. We are individualists, for better or for worse. There's goods to that and there's bads to that. But the point is, it's what we've been indoctrinated in, right? And only through a sufficient injection of fear do we become willing to stop thinking like that. So, what's the wrap up here? I believe that critical thinking about these issues, true research, by the way, as well, true research. Many of us think that watching some YouTube videos is research, think that reading a few articles is research. But that's not research. That's confirmation of an existing bias in most cases. If you want to research, then you have to go into who made the video, what's their agenda, what's their background, do they have any affiliations, do they not have any affiliations, which, by the way, you're then opening yourself up for the conspiracy rabbit hole. If you're going to read articles, you have to find out if they're peer reviewed. You've got to go deep. You've got to, like, research goes deep. Just watching a couple of videos or even 100 videos from the position of your existing bias is not research. So we could get through this. This is my overarching statement here, and I believe this is true. We could get through this easier, better, less collateral damage, both in the economy and in terms of lives, if we could engage our critical thinking faculties. You look through your social media feed, it's 80% fear masquerading as reasoned argument. 10 to 20% of what you see regarding our situation right now falls somewhere in the, okay, somebody gave this some thought kind of realm, but most of it is just not rational. I know it feels rational. I know you think it's rational. Most of it is not rational. I hope this has made a difference for someone. I imagine that I'm going to get attacked for this. And fair warning, I don't know yet how I'll respond if I am attacked, because I'm not so much emotional about this virus, but I'm emotional about the impact it's had and the way we're reacting to it. So if you do attack me with a non-critically thought out argument, I may fucking eviscerate you. I might not. I probably won't, but I might. So if you do that, be ready, because I'm having a really frustrating, challenging time at moments from this situation, just like the rest of us are. And most of the time, I keep the kid gloves on. I keep the punches pulled. But I may or may not have the threshold for more stupidity. So just be warned. Thank you very much.